animals can run away or fight back, plants can't. And so they need to use other methods. And one of those methods is by being actively poisoned, making defense chemicals. And this is something that can cause inflammation and screw with your body and your cells and precipitate cancer. So we call them carcinogens. So because this was cancer biology, we were looking at mostly from a carcinogen point of view, and we learned that Brussels sprouts had 136 known human carcinogens in them. White mushrooms had over 100. Spinach, kale, lettuce, celery, cabbage, cucumber, broccoli, you name it, they had 60, 80, over 100 known human carcinogens each, and they were quite abundant. We know from the work of Professor Bruce Ames at UC Berkeley, published a paper in 1989 showing the toxins in plants versus pesticides that were sprayed on them, because they were trying to make pesticides illegal. They're saying, hey, these are poison, we shouldn't use these. He's saying, yeah, they are poison, but we've been using these for 80 years. We've never had a problem. So, let's take a look at it. And he found that just the toxins that they knew about at the time, which were not as many as I learned about in my undergrad, that there were 10,000 times more naturally occurring poisons in vegetables like spinach than in the pesticides that we sprayed on them by weight. And that the naturally occurring toxins were far more likely to cause cancer than the pesticides we sprayed on them. So they were really a drop in the bucket. And this is why we still have pesticides, because they were trying to get them illegal, but they're like, no, actually, objectively, they aren't actually worse than the plant itself. And so if you want to eat the plant, then you shouldn't have any problem with the pesticide. And I think we're using sort of different ones now. The glycophosphates and things like that weren't, I don't think, tested at the time. So that might be a different argument. But certainly for what we were using at the time, they were specifically in that study, we're looking at alar, which is what they used for apples at the time. I remember thinking in my head, I was like, but vegetables are still good for you though, right? And my professor just looked at us and he just sort of shook his head and he just said, I don't eat salad. I don't eat vegetables. I don't let my kids eat vegetables. Plants are trying to kill you. So I was like, right, screw plants. And I just stopped, and I defaulted into a carnivore diet just because I just did not want to eat plants. And so I went to the grocery store. I was like, well, everything has plants in it. Everything has vegetables. Everything has, grains or rice or whatever. And so I just defaulted in eating eggs and meat.